You are listening to the continuation of the story. You can listen to the previous part via the link in the description below this video. Happy listening. Crap. I drove aimlessly for a while until I found myself near a school. It was quiet here, even the guards and patrolmen were nowhere to be seen. I parked in the back, next to the football field, as close to the stands as possible. Then I climbed into the back seat, pulled on a dark blue parka, and put on the hood. I rummaged under the seat and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. For the first time in a long time, this sip did not give me immediate relief. Sure, I felt a little better when I drank, but it didn't relieve the emptiness inside where it really mattered. I took another sip. Nothing, same story. When I took the third sip, I was already starting to panic inside because it was not giving any effect. Why doesn't it work? What's wrong with me? I felt hot tears fill my eyes, rolling down my cheeks like two burning streams of acid. And then I started crying. I cried like I don't remember ever crying. Here I am, sitting in my car behind school on Christmas Day, freezing cold outside, away from my wife and kids, nowhere to go, and having just been kicked out of my parents' house after I hit my dad. I have no job and no one to call, and it tore me apart, pulled me so far down that I could not see the sky above me. I clutched the bottle to my chest, rocking on the seat, and loud sobs tore me from the inside. It hurt so much. I curled my legs under me, trying to keep warm and stay sane in the silence of my melancholy. I couldn't imagine ever being this sad before, and I couldn't imagine ever wanting to feel this much pain again. In this state of sadness and despair, I lost consciousness and fell asleep. The cold winter wind whistled through the metal supports of the stands, creating harmony with the melody of my tired moans escaping my lips. I woke up slowly. Something was irritating my eyes. A knocking sound, a continuous knocking sound, as if pebbles were falling into a tin can. One by one, knock, 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 and light, bright light beyond my closed eyes. I turned my neck slightly and felt as if 1,000 volts were running through my spine. The cold penetrated my bones, paralyzing me. I groaned and tried to stretch the tense muscles in my back and shoulders, trying to return to life. I'm so cold. My arms, my face, my ankles were numb from being out in the cold air of late December for too long. I opened my eyes slightly and tried to look around. The blinding light from the window pierced my skull like a pulsating spike. "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" Grunting, I tried to sit up straight, but then I felt everything inside me turn upside down. Nausea set in, but fortunately there was nothing in my stomach, so I was able to hold on. Looking to my left, I saw the silhouette of a man in a coat and a cop's cap, shining a flashlight through my window with a worried expression on his face. I leaned forward and started the engine. The sound of ventilation echoed in the still cold cabin. Then I slowly pressed the button to open the window, and fresh, cool air filled the Charger's interior, helping me concentrate. "Yes," I said hoarsely, clearing my throat. "Yes, I'm fine. You know this is not a parking lot. You can't stay here." I looked at my night visitor. He was a cop from Nassau. He looked to be about 60 years old. He was wrapped warmly in his jacket, but he looked like a real cop. "Sorry, officer," I said more firmly. "I didn't plan on staying here." He looked carefully at my face, shining a flashlight on it and looking around the inside of my car. He noticed my hastily packed bags carelessly thrown in the back seat, my unkempt state, and finally the empty bottle of whiskey on the passenger seat. In a sudden burst of compassion that I didn't expect, he asked, "Are you okay? Don't you have anywhere else to go?" I wasn't going to fall apart in front of that cop, no way. So I pulled myself together before answering, "Yes, officer, I'm fine. And no, I don't have any other place to go at the moment." He looked at me, pursing his lips, as if thinking deeply about something. I was hoping he would just cut me some slack. "Please just leave me alone." "Well," he said slowly, "it's almost 11:30 and you shouldn't be here. I'll have to ask you to leave." "Ah, damn it," he continued after a long pause. "But it's still Christmas, and no one would be here if they didn't need it. I'll tell you what, I'll be back here at 6 a.m. and I'll ask you to leave then. This will give you some time to sleep and get it out of your system." He pointed to the bottle of whiskey. "Oh, gods. Thank you, officer. Really, thank you." "It's okay, son." He put the flashlight away. "Just start the car every now and then to keep it warm. It will be cold." He paused. "Are you sure I can't take you somewhere?" I shook my head. "No, honestly, thank you very much. But it's normal here. Everything will be all right." "Okay." He turned to leave. "Anyway, Merry Christmas to you." I swallowed hard, suddenly forming a lump in my throat. "And you, officer." I watched him slowly turn around in the parking lot and drive away, leaving me alone in the dark. I started the car and let the heater warm up the interior a little before turning the engine off again. Rummaging around in the back seat, I found a couple of sweatshirts and threw them over my legs. Then I sat back and looked out the window at the sky, just looking into the darkness and gradually falling asleep. The next time I woke up, it was still dark, but this time I wasn't so surprised to see a cop knocking on my window. I started the car and opened the window a little. "Hello, officer." "Hi, son. Are you feeling better?" I nodded. "Much better. Thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "No problem, officer. I'm already leaving." "Good luck." I buckled up and slowly pulled out of the school parking lot, heading back onto Main Street. I was moving slowly along the road until I noticed an open Dunkin' Donuts. There aren't many things open on Christmas morning at 6:30, so I was glad I found this place. I went in, got coffee and 2 egg sandwiches. Once I had refreshed myself, I asked for 6 donuts to be put in a bag, paid the bill, and drove on, heading to Jerry and Grace's house. I parked in front of their house and sat in the car for a few minutes, debating whether I should go to the door. Finally, gathering my courage, I went up to the house and knocked 2 times, 3 short knocks. Footsteps were heard inside, and the door was opened by Jerry in a robe and shorts. "Jimmy, damn it, Jimmy." He stepped forward, hugged me tightly, and patted me on the back. I returned his greeting, feeling the warm feeling that someone was happy to see me. "Man, you are a godsend for tired eyes. Come in, come in." He led me inside and called, "Grace, Jimmy's here." "Thank you, Jerry." I handed him a bag of donuts. "Merry Christmas. Sorry for showing up so early." "Come on, forget about it. Come in." I followed him into the kitchen, where he turned on the coffee maker and placed a bag of Dunkin' Donuts on the table. "I heard from Myra about a week ago." I felt cold. "Oh, that's how it is." "Yes, I was looking for you. Grace and I were having a pre-Christmas party and wanted to invite the 4 of you. She told me that you had problems and were now living with your parents." I swallowed, feeling my mouth dry. Yes, everything was not easy. "Understand?" He shook his head. "Damn, buddy. I can't imagine what you're going through right now." "Listen, Jerry, I need to ask you a favor." "About what, friend?" I hesitated and then gathered my courage. "I need somewhere to stay for a couple of days." I noticed his eyes become slightly unfocused and confusion crossed his face. I hastened to continue. "Only a sofa and only for a couple of days. 2, maximum 3 days." Jerry thought about it and nodded. "No question, buddy. I don't have much work during the week, so I don't think it's a problem. Let me just check with Grace and you can stay here." "What do you need to clarify with me?" His wife came into the kitchen, dressed in a sweater and pants, leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. "Hi, Jimmy. I heard what happened to you. I'm so sorry." "Thank you, Grace." "Honey," Jerry said, "Jimmy needs somewhere to stay for a couple of days, and I told him he could stay with us, if that's okay for you." Grace gave her husband a beaming smile and replied, "Of course, dear. I'll get you some bedding, Jimmy." She looked me over, noticing my unkempt state. "Listen, do you want to use the bathroom to freshen up? Should I take a shower?" "Oh gods, Grace, that would be wonderful. Do you mind?" She laughed. "I don't mind at all. I'll get you some towels now." The shower was incredibly nice. The water was hotter than what I'm used to, and the shampoo was better than the cheap 99-cent shampoo we've been using for the last couple of years. After I was done, I didn't want to bother my friends, but I needed to wash my clothes, so I asked permission to use the washer and dryer. They agreed with a kind smile, and I started the wash. During the day, when they weren't busy with their daughter Brittany or other things, I had the opportunity to tell Jerry about what was happening to me from my side. He listened silently, and I was grateful that he did not interrupt or share his findings. Although it was obvious that his opinion was already partially biased due to what he heard from Myra, some of his questions and comments seemed leading. Maybe she was right after all. Understand. But I think when it comes to children, she has to put their interests first. I can't imagine how therapy could not help, given that they have such a high success rate. Your parents probably just wanted to help and are probably worried themselves. On December 27th, Jerry had to work a couple of hours because his company had introduced shortened working hours over the Christmas holiday, and I had a few hours before going to Phoenix House. Grace was tending to Brittany when the dishwasher finished running, and she asked me, "Johnny, could you help unload it for me?" I got up from the sofa and unloaded the dishes and glasses, placing them in the cabinets. He did the same with the cutlery, putting them in a drawer, and, having finished, returned back to the sofa. After a while, I heard Grace start making noises in the kitchen, as if she was looking for something, and then the same sounds came from the dishwasher. I focused on Maury's show and tried to ignore the noise. At 11 o'clock, I thanked Grace for her hospitality and said I would be back after 4:30 when the session ended. She waved goodbye to me, although I don't think I heard her answer. Strange. Sally tried to find out what was happening to me, but I wasn't going to tell her about the whole nightmare that was happening to my parents over the holidays, so I only said that there were difficult moments, but they were already behind me. The day dragged on slowly, and I couldn't wait for it to end. On the way back to Jerry and Grace, I stopped near the park and drank the 2 beers I kept in the trunk, trying to stick to my plan to gradually reduce the amount of alcohol I consumed. When I returned to the Zivers, my mood was noticeably better. I was almost back to my usual state. This evening Jerry was more reserved, and Grace did not look as welcoming as the night before. I tried not to catch their eye and calmly fell asleep on their sofa. On the morning of the 29th, Jerry came up to me while I was eating frosted flakes in the kitchen for breakfast. "How was your night, buddy?" I swallowed my cereal and nodded. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." "Great, great." He glanced at his watch. "Listen, Grace's mom is coming to stay with us for a week or so for New Year's, and it's going to be a little troublesome, you know?" I chuckled. "Yeah, my relationship with Stephanie didn't work out either. Tell me, in general, I need to keep the peace, and when she arrives, she completely takes over the house. I hate to ask you this, but maybe you could move back in with your parents while she's here. You would just feel uncomfortable here." I shrugged. "I won't go back to my parents now. Father hasn't cooled down for a long time, and not enough time has passed." Taking another sip of my cereal, I considered my situation. I can call Brian and see if he'll let me stay with him for a while. Jerry smiled, and I felt better that I could help a friend. So before heading to the Phoenix house, I packed my things, thanked Jerry and Grace for their hospitality, handed Jerry a 20 for food and the use of the shower and laundry, and went to therapy. After the session, I went to Brian and was able to persuade him and his wife Laura to host me until just after the new year, I promise. Laura was a rather unpleasant person. She constantly criticized Brian, did not drink, did not smoke, and looked down on those who did. She was one of those women who seemed to have sex before she even smiled, and that was only because she imagined spending your salary. I stayed with them for 2 days, and I must admit that it seriously tested my friendship with Brian not to call his wife an arrogant prude. And then New Year's Eve finally arrived, December 31st, and I found myself once again looking for the next friend to stay with. I debated whether to go to Tim's or go to Patchogue to stay with Scott. I was still in daily contact with my mother, and although my father did not speak to me, we still kept in touch through her. Plus, all my mail continued to go to my parents until I found a new place to live, including letters regarding unemployment payments and court documents. My mom just told me that the official child support request for Myra has arrived, and that by January 4th, I will need to pay 25% of my entire income, even my unemployment benefits. Mom, I said irritably, this is nonsense. I already barely get $300 from the government every week, and I need to give her 75. Is this even legal? I don't know, Jimmy, but Myra was completely desperate. My father and I helped as much as we could, and her boss, they say, took pity on her and gave her more shifts. But even the extra hours don't help the situation much, and when she works, either her mother or I have to sit with the boys. I sighed. This would all end if social services would just let me go home. Jimmy, they'll let you do it whenever they see fit, not a minute sooner. I just don't understand how I can afford to pay this money. I almost live in my car. I don't know, son, but this is a fairly formal letter, and I would not advise ignoring it. Okay, Mom, I'll call my lawyer and find out how necessary this is. If he says yes, so be it, even if it's complete nonsense. Let me know what he says, Jimmy. I love you and Happy New Year. I hope next year will be better. Me too, Mom. Happy New Year to you and Dad. I chuckled. Are you even planning on staying up half the night this time? She laughed. We'll have to. We'll be babysitting John and Joel, and they'll probably want to knock on pots. All night? Yes. Myra needs this evening with her friends to take her mind off things a little. Poor girl, she is struggling to cope with everything. So my father and I agreed to look after the boys for her. It hurt me. So she can go out with her friends, but when I tried to organize dinner at Bracco 3 months ago, I was refused. This is unfair, Mom, pure injustice. James, Mom's voice became stern. Myra has been taking care of the children and supporting them alone for a long time. Social workers come to her, there are questions with lawyers, constant stress with the house, lack of money and extra working hours, and all this is on top of the usual worries. In this case, we're glad she got out to relax a little. Perhaps, I muttered, but it's still not for me. I don't know what else to tell you, Jimmy. Mom sighed. Look, just have a nice evening and call me tomorrow and tell me where you'll be, okay? Okay, Mom. Good night. Good night, Jimmy. I drove to the Phoenix house, feeling the anger boiling inside me again. What the hell? Is this normal? I'm going out of my way to find a place to live, and Myra is just having fun on New Year's Eve. And by the way, who will she be with? The blood froze, and the sting of rage in me again straightened out, like the wings of a snake. What if it's the man she's with today? Nonsense. All this, from beginning to end, is complete nonsense. The session with Sally was completely useless. It was as if my nerves were raw and on fire. She said something, and finally, at the end, she looked at me intently and asked, James, you were distracted the whole session. Did something happen? Anything you'd like to talk about? No, Sally, it's okay. Everything is fine. It's just that, probably, a new year is coming soon, new beginnings, only a week or two left, and the court will allow me to return to my children and wife. She frowned, her eyebrows knitting together. Oh, no, no, James. It doesn't work like that. The pent-up rage that I could barely keep under control suddenly broke out and mixed with cold and hot hatred. A fire flared up in my eyes, and I looked at the elderly woman with poorly concealed feelings. What do you mean, it doesn't work that way? I have been coming here every day, as expected, for over a month. There is still a week or two left, and the 6-week commitment will be fulfilled. That's exactly how it was explained to me. It was meant to be. James, we are here to make sure that you are aware and understand your problem. She pointed her finger at me. See, every time I talk about addiction or something similar to you, you cringe and narrow your eyes. This indicates that you do not like the term and that you do not consider yourself one. Because I've seen real addicts, and I'm not one of them. All this nonsense started with a quarrel with my wife. Then the police got involved, then the court, and now my life is going downhill, and I'm trying to get off this train. James, you are responsible for your own life. If something goes wrong in it, in most cases, it is the result of your own decisions. She sighed. As for the trial, yes, your 6-week program is ending soon, but I cannot in good conscience tell the authorities that you have successfully understood and accepted your situation. What? For crap, I straightened up, clenching my fists at my sides. Do you even understand what you're saying right now? I felt the tension rising inside me. Do you have any idea what this means to me? My left eye began to cloud over, and a red veil spread in front of me. Do you even realize what you are doing to me? We must give Sally credit. She sat absolutely calm while I literally exploded in front of her. The only thing that changed in her face was that her expression became harsher, but she waited until my words echoed. And now, James, this is a perfect example of why you're not ready yet. You are an ugly, smug cow with no breasts and no brains. You stupid bitch. I didn't answer. He simply turned around, grabbed his coat, and walked out, heading to the car. I started it up, turned the steering wheel sharply to the left, and, tires squealing, drove out of the parking lot, heading onto the Northern State Parkway. How all this infuriated me. This fucking stupid bitch was basically making it impossible for me to get home. How dare she? How the hell could she? Calm down, Jimmy. Calmly. Oh damn, I'm already approaching the fork at Sagticos. What the hell? How fast am I going? 96 miles per hour. 96. Yeah, Jimmy, the only thing you needed right now was a fine. They'll take your car, and then where will you live? Under the bridge in a box? I took my foot off the gas pedal and slowed down, keeping the charger just above 60. But where am I going? I don't have a place to go, but we need somewhere. Almost without realizing it, I reached into the back seat, pulled out a can of beer, opened it, and took a few short sips. Yes, I know, it's a stupid idea, but I don't care. I'm too nervous and beer will help me concentrate. Nobody paid any attention to me. I was just one of the many cars cruising the roads on New Year's Eve. But I still took the exit to Wanna Avenue and drove slowly through my neighborhood. What the hell, Jimmy? What are you looking for? Are you going to go to the house? I opened another jar. There is a ban on the house. I can't go near it. Screw it. I just want to see if Myra went out with another man. This is wrong. Completely wrong. I turned left onto my street and slowly drove past the neighbors' houses, approaching our house. There weren't any holiday lights this year, but Myra put paper decorations in the windows and a wreath hanging on the door. I saw her Kia sitting in the driveway with the left tail light broken and covered with clear tape. When did this happen? Damn, another thing that needs fixing. There was another car in the driveway, a Nissan Sentra that I didn't recognize. Who the hell could it be? And still dare to take my place? I threw the empty can into a paper bag and took out the last one. The last one? Damn, I've had 5 beers since I left Phoenix House. I put the unopened can back and opened the car door, straightened up, and stood on the edge of the entrance. Get up there, Jimmy. Go. Get up and find out what's going on. Come on, you should know this. I didn't move, afraid of what I would find if I went there, but even more afraid of the rage that was barely kept under lock and key inside me. And so I just stood there, looking at my house as the minutes dragged on and my pulse raced and raced. And then the front door opened. Here she is, Myra, my Myra, standing there in a black dress and high heels. She's holding an expensive TJ Maxx handbag, and her white winter coat is wide open. Her hair fell softly in waves, emphasizing her facial features. Following her, 3 more people came out, 2 women and a man. I recognized the women they worked with her, but the man was unknown to me. Who the hell was that, and why is he in my house? While they were animatedly discussing something and walking towards the Nissan, the first woman suddenly stopped, looked in my direction in surprise, and said, "Oh, Myra, it seems like someone has come to you." Myra looked up and froze, her mouth open in shock. "My God, Jimmy." We looked at each other silently, and all I felt for her was love. I've been waiting for this moment for so long, and here she stands, so beautiful. And then this guy ruined everything by opening his mouth and asking, "Myra, are you okay?" Seeing that she was scared, he stood in front of her, shielding her with himself, and continued, "Do you want me to deal with this guy, May?" It was as if a hammer hit my temples. "Now she has a pet nickname for you, you bastard." "Hey, asshole," I snapped. "This is my house, and this is my wife. Step aside and mind your own business." "Myra," one of the women said, standing next to her and taking out her phone, "you still have a restraining order against him. I'm calling the police." She turned to me and said louder, "Do you hear? I'm calling the police, Mr. Scully. You better go away and leave Myra alone." The guy started waving his arms, chasing me away as if I were some kind of cat. "Get out of here! Get out! Leave her alone! Disappear! What the hell? Am I a cat or what?" And this guy kept coming towards me, waving his arms, trying to drive me out of my territory. Myra, standing behind him, continuously repeated, "No, no, no," as if she couldn't believe her eyes. This guy was a threat to me, to my marriage, to my peace of mind. And the only way to deal with the threat is force. I took a step forward, clenching my fists, and saw him falter, slowing down. His left hand moved back, and he clenched his fist, trying to strike. I saw that this poor fellow had never fought in his life. How was he even going to hit? But before my fist could fall, one of the women screamed, "Let my husband go! Let him go!" Husband. I looked at this unfortunate man. His wife forgot about the police, waving her phone in her hands and vacillating between coming and trying to save her husband and staying away from me. And another woman tried to calm Myra, who knelt down, covering her face with her hands and sobbing until mascara ran down her cheeks. I made a serious mistake. Crap. His wife, having forgotten about her phone, rushed back and forth, and Myra, still in tears, covered her face with her hands, trembling all over. I have to go." I ran to my charger, jumped behind the wheel, and took off down the street with the tires squealing. "Damn it, Jimmy, you're screwed. What a stupid fucking Irishman you are. What were you hoping for? Was this supposed to fix everything? Did you think that this would bring her back? You could have killed this guy and spent the rest of his life in prison." It was becoming increasingly difficult for me to drive through my tears, but I found my way to Tim's house and sat down in front of his house, trying to calm down. Finally, when I was able to more or less come to my senses, I got out of the car and headed to the door. Tim opened it. "Jimmy? Hey, dude." He immediately became serious when he saw me and shook my hand firmly and then hugged me. "What do you owe, brother?" "Tim, I need somewhere to stay for the night." "Damn, buddy, you're at the right place. My home is your home. Come in." I sat down in Tim's cluttered living room and told him everything that had happened over the past months. He listened carefully, never interrupting, and simply supported me, trying not to make any comments. When I finished, there was nothing left in me. I felt wrung out like a rag, worn out like an old dog ball. "Tim, I know it's New Year's Eve, but do you mind if I sleep a little, buddy?" He looked around and wrinkled his nose. "My mom will come home later, and she will want to use the living room. Let's go down to the basement. It's been pretty clean since we cleaned it up for Thanksgiving." I followed him down the 12-stone steps into the cool, slightly damp basement. In our youth, we often spent time here, sometimes with girls, sometimes with drinks. The basement hasn't changed much. The same old sofa, low table, beat-up refrigerator, table football in the corner. Only now he seemed a little more shabby, a little more tired. So do I. Tim tore the ugly blue throw off the couch and rummaged through the closet, pulling out a blanket and pillow for me. "Here you go, dude. Sit here and sleep as much as you need. When you want to do something, let me know and go ahead." Jimmy and Timmy, back in action. He chuckled as I took off my shoes and lay down, feeling sleep engulf me faster and faster. I woke up early in the morning and went upstairs to go to the toilet. There was silence in the house, and it was just as calm outside. After I relieved myself, I walked into the kitchen and noticed an open bag of cheap Lay's chips. I stuffed my mouth with handfuls of chips and filled an old coffee mug with tap water to wash it down. When the tension in my stomach eased a little, I started looking for something else to snack on and found a six-pack of Heineken in the refrigerator. I drank one bottle while standing at the table, and then took the second one with me to the basement. In the dark, I drank slowly from the bottle, hating myself for it. I hate myself. I hate it beyond belief. But I can't do anything about it. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to. But no matter what I do, everything around me collapses. Here, in the darkness of my friend's basement, I sit and drink the beer I stole from his refrigerator, and I have nothing that could be called an achievement. Nothing but an unquenchable thirst that seems to be dragging me straight to hell. In the darkness, I raised the bottle to the ceiling and made a toast to the void. You have won, God, I give up. And having drained it to the bottom, he lowered the bottle. The next few days were the last that I can remember with any clarity for a long period of time. Tim helped me move my car to his house, and we moved the rest of my things there. I agreed with his mother that I would sit quietly and not disturb anyone until I got my thoughts in order, a week at most, and paid her $50 to help with expenses a little. I always considered his mother almost white trash, but she gladly accepted my money, asking only that I don't make noise, don't bring women into the basement, and clean up after myself if I suddenly throw up. I remember drinking. My choice almost always fell on Budweiser and cheap whiskey. Every few days, Tim and I would head to the nearest liquor store to get a supply, come back, and continue drinking, laughing, and passing out. At some point, my phone stopped working, and I sold it to one of Tim's friends for $30, which I immediately spent on another round of booze. I no longer dared to start the car, since I could rarely remain sober behind the wheel. Instead, I drove it to the very back of their parking lot, leaving it standing in a puddle where it sat, day after day, week after week. I had stopped going to Phoenix House since I swore at Sally and had no idea what that meant for my court case. In truth, I didn't care. I just lived my lonely life, day after day, over and over again, drinking, sitting in the basement, staring at one point on the wall, or mindlessly flipping through TV channels. I knew I still had money in my bank account because my debit card was still working to pay for beer and snacks, meaning unemployment benefits were still coming through. Honestly, I was just existing, lost in my own thoughts. If I started thinking about Myra, I would take another sip to dull the pain. If images of John and Joel came to mind, the heartbreaking pain almost made me kill the pain by any means necessary. Sometimes flashes of memories come to me. Some fragments of that time that seem to drag on endlessly. Like the time I laughed at something on the Jon Stewart show until I realized I wet myself laughing. Or when Tim took me with him and we met a guy with a piercing, he had a ring in his lip connected by a chain to a ring in his eyebrow. I couldn't help but laugh in his face until he told Tim to get out and not bring me with him anymore. There was also a time when I needed to carry a box downstairs, but I forgot to button my pants, and they slid down my ankles while I was walking down the steps. I somehow crabbed my way to the bottom of the stairs and laughed for a long time at my stupidity, while Tim looked at me as if I were crazy. Funny moments, yes, as funny as they are pathetic. What brought me out of this state was a trip to the hospital. It turned out that I was in the shower and suddenly felt bad. Tim knocked down the door and rushed over to help me. When I woke up, I was at Nassau University Hospital in East Meadow with bandages on my head, enrollment 4 in my arm, and the worst hangover of my life. I tried to get up, but a caring hand put me back on the bed and asked me to rest. Who could I resist? The next time I woke up in daylight to an unsympathetic nurse shaking my shoulder. "Time to take your meds, Mr. Scully." What? What happened? She handed me a couple of pills and a glass of water and began taking my vital signs. You've been here for 3 days, Mr. Scully. Concussion, serious damage to the larynx, suffocation, and alcohol poisoning. We have rehabilitated your body, and now you are fine. If the doctor agrees, you will be discharged tomorrow. Understood. Your mom and dad have been here the last 2 days. Your friend Tim on the first day. You also had other visitors. She pointed to the table by the bed, and I turned my head. On the table were bags of cookies and several postcards, stacked so that I could look through them as soon as I got stronger. But what touched me most were the handmade cards made of yellow paper with drawings of two little men depicting my boys standing next to a reclining figure. My sons were here. They were here, which meant Myra was here, and they saw me in this state. The nurse tried to console me while I sobbed and moaned. Soon more people came and gave me something, and soon I fell asleep again. When I woke up again, I saw Mom and Dad next to the bed. Mom looked tired and worn out, but Dad, he just looked old. Old, sad, empty. I swallowed, trying to wet my throat, and croaked, "Hello." They both smiled with relief. "Hi, Jimmy." "Hello, son." I sighed, gathering strength that had come from nowhere. "I'm so sorry, Dad." "Don't," he said harshly, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Don't you dare start this. Everything has already happened. Everything is behind us. We are Irish, not Italian. We know how to blame ourselves, but not hold a grudge, okay?" I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Dad." Mom smiled faintly, leaned over, and kissed me on the cheek. "I haven't been able to call you for so long. Your phone didn't answer, and then you received a message that the number was no longer in service. People from social services came, Myra was sick, the boys missed you, Sally from Phoenix House called. Jimmy, you just disappeared. Has anyone thought about calling Tim?" We tried, just like everyone else. No one answered, and soon his phone also went off. I sighed. "So how did you find me here?" "Myra called us. When you were here for John and Joel's birth, you and her listed each other as emergency contacts. The hospital called her, and she called us. Here we are." We talked for a long time, horrified to learn that it was already April. 4 months. I lost about 4 months of my life, and I had nothing to compensate for it. My parents sat with me for some time while I came to my senses. Soon they looked at each other with some concern and, noticing this, said that they were going to the gift shop and will be back soon, after which they left. In the ensuing silence of the room, I caught a subtle smell of coconut, a smell that was painfully familiar to me. A timid voice came from the door. "James, can I come in?" I turned my head. It was Myra, my wife. The smell came from her shampoo, and I couldn't help but think, how could I ever forget this? I extended my hand to her, as if by sheer force of will I could pull her towards me. She took a few steps, then quickened her pace and finally fell on my chest, hugging me tightly. "Oh, Jimmy. Oh, James. Oh, Jimmy." She sobbed, and I hugged her tightly back, feeling her shoulders shake with sobs, releasing everything that had been weighing on her for so long. "I thought you were dead." I shook my head and hugged her even tighter. "No, dear, it's just that sometimes I wished for it myself." We stayed like that for a few more minutes before she pulled away and looked into my eyes. "Where have you been all these months?" I told her everything I could remember about the last unclear, blurry months, and she told me her story, full of difficulties, which, as it turned out, became the complete opposite of mine. Listening to her, I felt a growing anxiety about what terrible trials she had to go through, what she was forced to endure. She lived on government assistance, receiving food stamps and assistance from numerous organizations I didn't even care to remember. The house was on the verge of being lost for non-payment, and the boys, she said, had changed a lot. Sometimes they missed their father, sometimes they suddenly began to express disobedience, as if to spite her. But what she said at the end completely broke me. "And that's the biggest problem right now, James." "What, dear?" She sighed, lowering her eyes. "James, Child Protective Services became quite hostile towards me. Very hostile. Despite your and my mother's help, they said that the children's home conditions are deteriorating and their safety is now in question. I was at the limit. I simply had nothing else to plug all the holes in. Everything began to fall apart before my eyes. She straightened up, sitting on the edge of the bed, and began to curl her fingers, looking at the floor. So I made a promise to myself. If you do not return home or begin to recover by March 15th, I will have to make a difficult decision. I felt something slowly freeze inside. The snake of anger stirred somewhere in the depths, but it was so tired, so depressed that it barely had enough strength for its enraged hiss. Myra, it's already mid-April. What decision did you make? My wife stood up and took a step back from the bed as if gathering her resolve. Jimmy, I filed for divorce. A dull thud. It was as if the last support of my life had collapsed. No, I breathed. This cannot be. Jimmy, I have to do this. I have to do the right thing for the boys and for myself. There were tears in her eyes. I tried to find you, tried to contact you so many times. I just didn't have the strength left. I can't do it anymore. Myra, I won't let you get a divorce. She looked at me with a hazy, devastated look. It's not up to you to decide, Jimmy. This has already been decided. My pulse quickened, and I felt my vision blur. Myra, listen to me. We are Catholics. We don't have divorces. Do you understand that? We are married for life in the eyes of God. Jimmy, you're not a practicing Catholic, and neither am I. I hit the bed with my fist. I don't care. You can't just forget what we were taught since childhood. You won't agree to this. Myra swallowed nervously and, without taking her eyes off me, said, James, I will never stop you from seeing the boys when the courts give permission, and I say quite seriously, you will always remain my first and main love. But you can't force it to bend to your will. No matter how much I love you, you killed a part of my heart, and everything that has happened since then has forced me to isolate myself from this pain. You can't force it into submission. And James, I've already had to make some tough choices. What? What do you mean? I needed help with my mortgage, and with a phone bill, and with the delivery of butter, she continued, wringing her hands again. And the head of the vegetable department at work, Mark, well, he's been breathing unevenly towards me for a long time. No, I couldn't believe what I heard. No, Myra, no. I haven't slept with him yet, Jimmy. She sighed heavily, and tears streamed down her face without sobbing, as if from a faucet. But he helped a lot with the house, money, and repairs, and the boys have behaved better since he started coming. I know what he wants, and I'll have to give it to him sooner or later. She sobbed as if straight from the soul. I don't have much choice. Not if I want to help our sons. Courts, lawyers, guardianship, you. Everything is tearing us apart, James. It's time. It's time to end this. Oh God, Myra, baby. How could I continue to suffer? How could there still be anything left in me to hurt? Haven't I exhausted myself? Isn't that enough? I'm sorry. Myra, I will never give you a divorce. Never. Under no circumstances. Never. Can you hear me? Can you hear? In sickness and in health, in richer and poorer, in joy and in sorrow, until death do us part. She bowed her head and left the room, whispering only, I love you, James. I sat on the bed, just staring blankly ahead. I think Mom and Dad stopped by, but I couldn't tell what they said or what, if anything, I said. All I knew was that the room was gradually plunging into darkness, and I continued to look at the opposite wall, feeling nothing but dull, tearing agony. Oh God, how I wanted to die. Just die. Why do you want to die, Jimmy? What? I blinked, not immediately noticing that the sun had long since set in the fluorescent-lit room. Sitting opposite me was a middle-aged man in a dark coat and jeans, with his legs crossed and a glass of water at his elbow. He adjusted his glasses and nodded at me. I asked why you want to die. Who the hell are you? He chuckled. Obviously, you didn't hear a word I said. I am Father Michael Baldwin, a grief and addiction counselor at the Nassau Clinic. I was assigned to your case a few days ago, but until today you were unable to speak. Great, I muttered. Another therapist. The last one did just fine. Therapy is a funny thing, Jimmy. It works wonders, but only if you really want help. Otherwise, this is the most useless activity in life. Okay, this guy said some seemingly reasonable things. Well, the last time was just like that. 6 weeks of groups, conversations, openness, and that fake Jesus, no offense, Father. I'm not offended. He bowed his head. Where was it? At Phoenix House. They work well there, but it's not for everyone. Well, it didn't work for me. Then why did you go there? I threw my head back on the pillow and stared at the ceiling. To return home to my wife and children. He nodded. Good goal, even noble. Father Michael stood up and put his hand on my chest. And it was probably doomed to failure because of this. What? Jimmy, therapy only works if it's for you. If it's for something else, it will never work. Never. He nodded towards the door. The woman who was here today left in tears. Is this your wife? I nodded. She's leaving me. That's why you want to die. You won't understand, Father. She was my support, my pillar, my other half. We have 2 sons. But it's over. Father Michael simply watched as I wallowed in my grief, then reached over to the bed next to me and took a pillow from it. Hey, hey. I pushed him away, squirming. What the hell are you doing, Father? I will give you what you want. He threw the pillow to the floor and stared at me. Damn it, Jimmy. If you want to die so much, why are you resisting? What the hell kind of priest are you? Are you going to kill me? What, are you crazy? He laughed. Jimmy, you and I will succeed. But first, here's what. Suddenly, he extended his hand and hit me. This is so that you pay attention to me. His eyes were cold and he leaned closer. Can you hear me? I nodded quietly. Fine. Then listen. I'm here for one purpose, to help you get out. I will do whatever it takes to make you understand that there is not a single reason to die. Every life is valuable, each. He pointed his finger at my chest. And if you want even a chance, even the slightest opportunity to see your children, your wife, or anyone who has loved, loves, and will love you, it will only be because you want to get well for yourself. He pointed to the pillow on the floor. Because if you don't make the decision to want to get better for Jimmy's sake, you might as well strangle yourself. Father Michael left my bed and walked towards the door. We'll talk tomorrow, Jimmy. You will be discharged and will live with your parents. I had already found out their address and discussed with them in detail what my therapy would involve. They agreed to help and will be a support when I'm not around. I looked at him, still not believing that this assertive man was really a priest. You've already thought of everything, haven't you? He smiled. No, this is your task. He waved his hand. See you tomorrow. The next day, the discharge was strange. A sheriff's deputy approached me and handed me a copy of the separation order, a modified order of protection that allowed only prearranged phone calls and still excluded any visits. Thank you, Nassau County Child Protective Services, and a 4-month restraining order. To Charles Barrington. I had no idea who it was until I realized it was the poor guy I almost beat up on New Year's Day. I had things to do. The nurses were very kind and wheeled me out of the hospital in a wheelchair to my parents' car. I hugged them both and thanked them for putting up with me. Then I got in the back seat and we drove to their house. The car was quiet, no one was talking, and I didn't know what to say. We were just driving, and my thoughts were somewhere far away. When we stopped and Dad turned off the car, the silence became so dense that you could cut it with a knife. Jimmy. Yes, Dad? I asked with apprehension, imagining what was on his mind. Please, just don't start a fight. I definitely can't stand it now. I love you, son. My God. And, he continued, interrupting me, under no circumstances would I want you to die. Crap. Father Baldwin seemed to have had time to talk to them. Mom cried quietly, sitting next to her. and Dad's face glowed with embarrassment from this manifestation of feelings. Listen, I'm not going to kill myself, okay? I'm Jimmy Scully, the stubborn and unbending son of Shane and Mary. I grinned to myself. Seriously, I'm not going anywhere. Damn, do I believe what I'm saying? I'm dying inside after Myra's revelations, but I don't think it will destroy me. God, I hope not. We walked into the house, and the three of us seemed to tiptoe around as I sorted out my old room again and sorted through even fewer of my things. Hey, Mom, I need someone to take me to Tim's to pick up the car and my things. Jimmy, about that, Mom answered with firmness in her voice. You can't talk to Tim right now. What? I stopped on my way to the bathroom to turn to her. Why? Father Mike doesn't want you around what he calls trigger people, and based on the last 4 months, he thinks Tim is one of them. Damn it, Mom. We've been friends since 5th grade. Darling, Tim may be a good buddy, but no real friend would let you do this to yourself. Your father and I will go to him ourselves to get the car and collect all the things left there. Father Mike should be here soon, so we'll leave so you can start therapy. I muttered something to myself and went into the toilet. When I looked down, I was a little surprised because my stomach was in the way. When did this even happen? I thought about it and figured that I had probably gained about 16 kilos since Christmas. 16 kilograms in 4.5 months. I grabbed my stomach and shook it, realizing with disgust that it had gotten so big. Yeah, Jimmy, you're becoming a fat, drunk, disgusting guy. Jimmy, Mom shouted. We're leaving. We'll be back soon. I heard the door slam and walked out of the bathroom, casually holding my clothes in one hand. I wandered to my room and looked for something to wear, settling on shorts with an elastic waistband and a t-shirt. I was horrified to discover how tightly it fit around my waist. Feeling depressed again, I went to the kitchen to grab something to eat and at the same time check if there was anything to drink. But of course, I didn't find anything like that. There was a knock on the door, and I reluctantly went to open it, greeting Father Michael weakly, saying, "Hello, and come in." He walked into the kitchen and first of all asked for a glass of water, and then invited me to sit down. Well, Jimmy, ready for the first day of the rest of your life? I shrugged. My thoughts were somewhere else. Well, yes, I answered, looking out the window. Okay, Jimmy, spit it out. What's happened? Nothing. Everything is fine. He shook his head. Things won't work that way. You will answer my questions, you will talk to me and perceive this as your last chance at a normal life. Or I'll just leave and you'll find a less painful way to kill yourself other than alcohol poisoning. So speak up. I just found out that I can't talk to Tim. Is this the same Tim Mallock? I nodded. Jimmy, I'm sure Tim is a great friend in his own way, and I wouldn't want you to think that later you won't be able to communicate with him again and return to your usual fun. However, at this stage, Tim is the trigger. He is one of those factors in your life that provokes you to drink, Father Michael continued. Based on my conversations, including conversations with Tim Mallock himself and his mother, with whom you lived, I cannot imagine a worse person than him to spend his last months with. He constantly uses illegal substances, loves your passion for drinking, and does not work anywhere legally. His mother is better, but is not at all interested in her son's life and well-being, and is emotionally detached from his problems. She works 2 jobs to keep afloat and pay for the house, and is almost never home during normal hours 7 days a week. Jimmy, I promise you that if we do this, and we do this for you, if you can get to the point where you are healthy and balanced, you will have no problem renewing your friendship with Tim and doing this, so that it is correct and does not destroy you, okay? I nodded and sat back in my chair, ready to talk to Father Michael. Okay, I'm ready. Let's get started, I said with a slight sense of optimism. Great. Jimmy, you are a miserable person with an addiction. Hey, I'm serious, he continued. You will now and always will, so you better get used to it. What kind of therapy is this? I shouted. You had to gently bring me to realization, make me understand it, somehow prepare me. Sorry, Father. He laughed. It's okay. First, Stop apologizing for being rude. It happens. Sorry, Father. I'm just an Irish Catholic, kind of a reaction. Understand. Second, you wait for something that usually comes much later. Now we have only one goal. You must accept the fact that you are an addict. He pointed his finger at me. Do you see? This grimace that appeared on your face when I said the word addicted is your biggest stumbling block. He sighed. James, the truth is that most people with addiction will never admit that they have it. They live their whole lives blaming everyone around them and avoiding responsibility. They find it difficult to take responsibility for their actions. They believe that the world owes them something, and the world doesn't owe you anything. Absolutely. No one puts a bottle in your hand, no one forces you to drink, and no one ruins your life and the lives of those around you because of your drinking. You do it. Only you. I started to get angry listening to him. I hadn't seen my sons for months. Myra was leaving me. I couldn't communicate with my best friend because he was a bad influence. I weighed 16 kilograms more. I didn't have a job. There was no clarity on what was left in can, and I just spent 3 days in the hospital without health insurance. And now he tells me that I'm an addict and it's my fault. Only mine. Is this really true? Somewhere deep down I knew the answer, but I ignored it for so long. For so long I lived with the belief that it was not my fault and that I was in control of the situation. I am Jimmy Scully, unshakable and unbending. I was in control. I could stop whenever I wanted. Damn it, Jimmy. How many times have you said these words? How many times have you said them in the last months while you were with Myra? Hundreds of times. What about yourself? Thousands. But you couldn't stop, could you? You can't fix everything. You can't control everything. And the more you try, the worse it gets. Crap. So Father Mike and I talked every day that week, and every day I came more and more to the sad realization that my addiction was my problem. Mine. I ruined my life, became estranged from my parents, and was entirely responsible for turning it into this uncontrollable chaos. On Friday, Father Mike invited me to my first meeting at St. William, the Abbot Catholic Church, to which I immediately asked, "They're not going to drag me back into Catholicism, are they?" He laughed. "No, Jimmy. For some people, attending meetings feels like a religious experience, but in reality, it is not. It's what you learn from it, just like in therapy. So you can just go, get acquainted, see how it goes, and then we'll meet on Monday. Do you want me to take you?" It had been so long since I'd driven my car that I couldn't remember the last time. I knew the car was dirty and needed maintenance, but I couldn't bring myself to leave the house, moving only between the kitchen, living room, and bedroom. There was no chance that I would drive the car. "Yes. Do you mind?" "Not at all. I'll arrive at 6:30 to pick you up." That evening, I ate almost nothing for dinner. I was constantly running to the toilet out of excitement, which drove my dad crazy to the point that he accused me of being obscene at the table and running to wash my hands every 15 minutes. He seemed disappointed that I didn't respond to him the way I usually did and realized how stressed out I was about the whole thing. Father Mike arrived a little later and took me to church. It was quite decent, as far as it is possible for a church. A white building with a bell tower, in front of which several people were smoking and talking in small groups. I got out of the car, straightened my shirt, not too happy with the way it hugged my chest, and headed for the door. Several people standing outside nodded in our direction. Some greeted Father Michael by name. It was expected, but it still surprised me. None of these people looked like a typical person with an addiction. True, not one. This woman, for example, looked like a typical playground mom. He could be an accountant, and the two standing next to him could have been playing basketball. Yes, that woman with tattoos looked like a complete wreck, but overall, they all looked like ordinary people. At some point, someone came out and announced, "The meeting for Friends of Bill W. is starting if anyone is interested." I saw most of the people put out their cigarettes and move inside. I guessed that Bill W. This is some kind of code or something like that. Damn, maybe there is some kind of booklet that you should read before coming. Well, okay, I joined those going inside, barely hiding the sweating of my palms. Fortunately, we were not taken to the main part of the church. We went to a small hall on the side. 40 people gathered there, but there was room for another 20. Standing in front was a plump, older man who opened the meeting and greeted everyone. I wasn't going to say anything, just watch and follow the others, trying not to get too nervous. Get it together, Jimmy. Get your act together. The meeting became a revelation for me. It was similar to what I was involved in at Phoenix House, but perhaps because of the change in mood or something, this meeting seemed to resonate with me. I felt like I belonged here. Several people read passages from the 12 traditions, a kind of charter describing what it is. The presenter then asked if there was anyone new among those present, and Father Mike, who was sitting in front, turned to me and looked me straight in the eyes. Crap. Get yourself together. Stand up. Just do it. People were looking around. Many were already looking at me. I put my hands on my knees and pushed myself up. It's me, I said. Great. Welcome. What is your name? Jimmy. Jimmy Scully. Hello, Jimmy. The whole group greeted me in unison. I felt my cheeks begin to burn. The presenter extended his hand to me, palm up. Is there anything you would like to share with us, Jimmy? No, it's too early for that yet. Not yet. Maybe another time. Yes, another time, Jimmy. No problem, he answered with a smile, and I sat back down. Welcome anyway, and so, my time under the spotlight is over. I didn't burn out, I didn't faint, I wasn't ridiculed or judged, I just said hi and was accepted. And that was the key for me. I was accepted by a room full of people who looked normal, acted normal, but each of them, everyone had once been where I was now. Shattered by life, in complete ruin, and now, on the way to better things. I listened as people took turns telling their stories and was shocked by what some had gone through and what they had put their families through. One man left home 3 years ago to go on a spree and only 5 months ago, by some miracle, returned to normal life. That woman over there one day drove her car right into the living room of her home. Everyone had their own story, but they all somehow made it through. And that was exactly the point. They did this every day. Every day they chose not to drink. They woke up, went about their day, and at some point said, I won't drink today. And they lived it, embodying this decision. At the end of the meeting, the empty box was passed around in a circle so that everyone could put something in it if possible. I felt uncomfortable since I only had 68 cents in change. The tired blonde sitting next to me assured me that this was normal and that any contribution was appreciated and not required. Father Mike personally led me to the host, who thanked me for my participation and handed me a white chip, asking if I would like to come again. Yes, I answered, surprised at my own answer. This is how my journey began. Every day I talked to my mom and dad, trying to get my life in order and gain control over reality. Father Michael often came or called when he could not be there in person, supporting me even though I did not know I needed support. I went to meetings and listened, focused and attentive. What did Grandpa Connell say? Take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth, Jimmy. Don't talk, just listen. The second week of my sobriety nearly destroyed my achievements when I began to realize the full depth of the hole into which I had driven myself. In the second week of sobriety, my self-control almost cracked when I began to realize the full depth of the hole into which I had driven myself. Custodial services came to the house to interview me to make sure I was participating in some kind of program and making progress. Father Mike was nearby, along with Mom and Dad. They became my staunchest defenders, fending off this caseworker's arrogant comments. She said things like, "It's best for the children not to be exposed to negative influences at this time," and "It's in our best interest to keep the father away from the children for now until he has proven himself capable of intelligent and mature responsibility." Damn her. I was surprised when Dad joined the conversation. "Listen," he said, clearly annoyed. "My wife and I will be quite comfortable meeting our grandchildren. They are here all the time. So why, if you're so afraid of being sued if someone trips in front of you, don't you let Jimmy see his sons, whom he hasn't seen in 6 months? Lord knows this is not at all healthy for children. Why not allow children to be met under supervision here? Me, my wife, you, and at least invite the sheriff to make sure that Jimmy doesn't decide to drink beer in front of the kids and attack them. I swear I've never heard such nonsense in my life. He is their father, and let me tell you, he may have had some problems lately, but he loves his children with all his soul, and you are only torturing us all by continuing to drag out this farce. The social worker replied that she would talk about this with her superiors and come back to us with a decision. Father Mike gave her his contact information and reminded her that he, too, was part of a social service network and was using all his professional connections. I hoped that his word would somehow speed up the process, but he immediately warned me that Children's Services was the most problematic and slowest of all the agencies that I had to deal with, and that I would have to wait weeks for news. On my 16th day of sobriety, I walked out to my charger for the first time and burst into tears. Mom stood nearby while I inspected my car. It was dirty from bumper to bumper, with lots of scratches in the paint from neglect and who knows what else. There was a dent in the driver's door, as if I had once swung it open drunk and bumped into some kind of obstacle, leaving a 2-foot mark in the metal. The salon was in terrible condition. Old bottles, cans, food wrappers, cobwebs, and ants. Who would have thought that there could be ants in a car? But there they were, crawling all over the cabin. There were cigarette marks on the seat upholstery, and the radio was missing God knows where it had gone. I opened the trunk and didn't immediately recognize a pile of rags there until I realized that this was apparently my white drawer, where I had been dumping dirty laundry since who knows when. And apparently, one day I threw up in the trunk. There were at least a dozen empty whiskey bottles and probably another 3 dozen empty beer cans lying around. I cleared enough space in the driver's seat to get into the smelly interior and try to start the car. The engine started with a strained noise and began to work. My accustomed hearing sensed that something was wrong with him. The sound of the engine became rougher, as if it was full of phlegm that needed to be coughed up. I turned off the ignition and just sat there, not believing that this was truly my pride and joy. Mom hugged me when I got out of the car and didn't say anything, just led me back into the house, and in the kitchen handed me a roll of paper towels, a bottle of carpet cleaner, glass cleaner, and an empty garbage bag. Don't look at all the work at once, Jimmy. Do it little by little. Remove the front seat today. Tomorrow is the back one, and so on. I took it all from her and leaned over to kiss her on the cheek. Thank you, Mom. She wiped her eyes. Go and clean it up, Jimmy. Just like you tidy up your life. You can handle it. I walked out thinking about how many times over the years I had said to myself, I can do this. Everything is under control. It's not a problem. Well, this time I was really going to keep my promise and do everything right. On the 21st day, I became more active in the meetings, admitted to the group that I was on the second step, and thanked all these people for helping me cope with my addiction. Some of the participants emphasized Jesus or God as the basis of their path to change. For me, it was all about the group. Religion helped some people, but it didn't work for me. A few days later, I received a bill from the hospital for my stay there. $2,475. I laughed, loudly, from the heart, with such a sincere laugh that I had not experienced for a long time. I showed it to my dad, and he frowned. What is this, Jimmy? Did you have open heart surgery there? I shrugged, picked up a stone from the path, and handed it to him. Dad, this is mine. Squeeze it and send the blood that flows out to them. In the second week of May, I reached another milestone about 30 days of sobriety. I was given a red chip, and Father Michael personally gave it to me at the end of the meeting. I'm very proud of you, Jimmy. The journey has not been easy, and you still have many challenges ahead, but you are making great progress, and I am glad to be a part of this process. I thanked him for his support, and while we were talking, a man in his early 30s slowly approached us. Hi, Jimmy, he said to me, extending his hand for a handshake. Congratulations on the 30-day mark, buddy. Thank you, I replied, not immediately remembering who it was, although he seemed familiar to me. One day at a time, you understand. He laughed. I still understand. He narrowed his eyes slightly, looking into my eyes. You don't recognize me, do you? Sorry, buddy. I would like to, but I can't remember. Volume, Tom Maldive, Maldive Construction Company. I snapped my fingers. Whoa, sorry, man. Long time no see. How are you? Still taking materials from Florence. Everything is fine. The season is gaining momentum. And yes, I still shop from them. He looked at Father Michael. I see you are going to meetings with him now. You used to have a charger, right? Yes, I answered. It's not running right now, but I'm working on it little by little. Hope it starts soon. Why are you asking? Well, I just need workers for my team. Nothing complicated, $16 an hour. And I remember how you worked hard then, tirelessly. He pointed to the participants leaving the hall. I know what you're going through right now. I've been sober for 5 years. I rarely go to meetings, maybe once a month, just for prevention. But I saw you here and realized that you were trying. So, are you interested? Oh, damn. Of course, yes. I shook his hand vigorously, not hiding my joy. When to start? What to do? I really need a job. Calm down. Everything is fine. On the Monday after Mother's Day, can you be at Home Depot on Hempstead Turnpike by 7 a.m.? If necessary, I can get there even by swimming. Great. If you're there, consider yourself accepted. Bring lunch and a water bottle. He paused. And get ready to work. I smiled and shook his hand firmly again. No problem, Tom. I won't let you down. He patted my red chip and walked away smiling. At home, hospital bills continued to mount, now topping $29,000 as new bills came in from radiologists, psychologists, and other specialists. I also received a notice from the court that my child support payments were past due, which was already over $2,000, not including interest and penalties. The guardianship service has still not given permission to see my sons. The caseworker told Father Mike that it was an issue they are discussing seriously at the moment. Of course, it's a complete lie. On Mother's Day, Dad and I took Mom to brunch, and the meal was warm and quiet, just enjoying being with each other. After eating, I asked my parents if they were going to visit Myra. Mom looked at Dad and answered, "Yes, Jimmy, we were going to visit her later." I took a large envelope out of my pocket and handed it to her. "Could you give this to her?" She looked at it, seeing my wife's name written on the envelope in marker. "What is this?" I sighed. "This is a kind of apology. I'm not good at writing. Everyone knows that I always got low grades in my essays." "It's true," Dad inserted with a slight grin, which softened the causticity of his words. Mom playfully slapped him on the shoulder and let me continue. "In general, this is a task. I wrote a list of everything I remember. Every time I lied to her, hid a drink, every time I let her down. I just want her to know that many of our problems were my fault, mine, and that I accept responsibility for this and try to change." "Oh, Jimmy." Mom's eyes filled with tears again. "I know it won't fix everything, but I want her to know that I'm here, I love her, and even though I haven't seen her or our babies in so long, she's still their mom, and I'm forever grateful that we raised them together." She put the envelope in her bag. "I'll definitely pass it on, son." Monday morning, I woke up at 5:30, made myself 2 sandwiches, put lunch in a small cooler bag, and poured a large bottle of water, then took my old bike out of the shed. I pumped up the tires, oiled the chain, and hit the road to Hempstead Turnpike. 45 agonizing, exhausting minutes later, I pulled up to Home Depot and dismounted my bike on shaky legs. Oh my God, how my knees, hips, and ankles hurt. I went inside, and after asking a friendly employee if I could leave my bike against the wall for a couple of minutes, I received approval. Then he headed to the nearest cash register and bought 2 packs of painkillers and a bottle of water. I took 4 pills and waited outside until my heart calmed down and my muscles stopped hurting. Tom Maldive pulled up at 7 a.m. in his big black and white truck with 3 other guys already inside. "Hey, Jimmy, glad to see you." "Thank you, Tom." I shook his hand with a feeling of gratitude. "Thanks for the chance." "No problem. This is Hector, my deputy. And this is Juan and Saul. I shook hands with the others in silence. Is this your bike? Damn, Jimmy, did you drive it? I promised that I would be here. He laughed. Okay, that's it. Throw it in the back. I thought you had already fixed your car. I shrugged, climbed onto the side of the truck, and tossed the bike and other building materials on it. As soon as I receive my first salary, I will be able to buy candles, filters, fluids, and belts. He nodded without saying anything, and we went to work. It was a house expansion project. They were building part of the second floor, and it was obvious that they had been working here for several days. My job consisted mainly of carrying wood, fetching tools, and cleaning. On the first day, I learned a lot of new things. For example, how little I knew about construction, or how unfit I was physically, or how hard everyone else was working, and I had to work as hard as I could to keep up with them. When Tom said the day was over at 4:30, we all climbed back into the truck, and he drove us back to Hampstead. I was dreading the thought of riding my bike home and had already decided to call my mom to pick me up. Tom dropped off the other 3 guys first, giving 2 of them cash straight out of his pocket for the day. He then asked for my address, and I told him he didn't need to take me home. Nonsense. You came today, Jimmy. At least I can take you back. I dictated the address, and we drove away, chatting about all sorts of things. When we arrived at my parents' house, he helped me take off my bike and took 450s out of his pocket, handing them to me. Listen, Jimmy, this is an advance, not a gift in advance on your salary. Use it to get your car repaired by Wednesday and fill it up. I don't want you to be half dead because you had to bike to work. Tom, thank you so much, buddy. I won't let you down. I had no doubt. He smiled and started the engine. See you tomorrow, Jimmy. That night, I worked on the car until the meeting and then returned and continued until dark. Tuesday went about the same as Monday. Dad was nearby and helped me install the last spark plugs. Well, Jimmy, he said, wiping the dirt off his hands, start this thing and see if you can move it. I smiled, put the key in the ignition, and turned it. The charger started up and sounded much smoother than last time. I stepped on the gas and the engine started, roaring as it should. Loud, growling, just like I wanted. Great, Dad. Sounds good. He shrugged, closing the hood. What a shame. In my day, everyone knew how to fix their car, and now there are so many electronics under the hood that you can't do anything without instructions. He patted me on the shoulder. But yeah, Jimmy, that sounds good. Do you feel how nice it is to rebuild your life piece by piece? Yes, Dad. Feel. He pushed me slightly, moving me away from the driver's door. I walked around the car and opened the passenger door, glad that the smell inside was much more pleasant after cleaning. It's illegal, Dad. I still have to renew my insurance. Dad nodded at the seat belt, and I complied. Shut the door, boy. My mother and I have already taken care of insurance and paid for the next 6 months. As I was fastening my belt, I noticed his stern look. You keep holding on, Jimmy. Don't let us down, okay? No way, Dad. I shook his hand firmly, feeling sincere gratitude. You can count on me. That's good. He put the car in reverse and pulled out of the driveway. Now let's see what this wreck is capable of. When we returned home an hour later, my mother was standing in the kitchen, pointing at the clock. It's already 10:36. Do you jokers have any idea how much time has passed? Next time, say that you are going somewhere. Where have you been? Dad stretched, then walked up to Mom and kissed her on the lips. Honey, I'm tired and going to bed. He grabbed her around the waist and dragged her towards the bedroom. Oh yeah, and we need to talk about trading my car for something more masculine. Good night, Jimmy, he waved his hand, pulling his mother along with him. My life went on as usual, becoming a little better every day. There were small victories and small defeats, but I kept everything under control. Now I decided for myself what I wanted from life, and it definitely wasn't a bottle. On Monday, Memorial Day, a social worker from the Child Welfare Service came to see us. Mom and Dad were preparing a small barbecue that I thought was intended for just the 3 of us. But then Father Mike appeared, greeted everyone, and checked his watch with a social worker. What's happening? I was about to ask why they were here and whether this was an unexpected visit when I heard a thin voice at the gate. Dad? I turned around and saw a little boy of about 6, tall for his age, with red curly hair, wearing a blue and gray striped t-shirt. Standing next to him was a younger, blond boy, clutching a tattered cap with the Florence Building Supply logo in his hands. They both looked at me with hope, fear, and uncertainty. My boys, my sons. I dropped a tray of hot dogs on the lawn and fell to my knees as if I had been hit on the back with a board. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to stop the dizziness and roaring in my ears. What came out of me was, John, Joel, oh my God. And then 2 little bodies crashed into me, hugging me and screaming loudly with joy. I sobbed, hugging my sons to me, my tears falling on their hair and running down their chin. I inhaled their scent, blinded by tears, seeing only them, clinging to me as if they were drowning and I was their salvation. I couldn't breathe, there was a metallic taste in my throat, and I sobbed again and again, hugging them so tightly as if I could become one with them. Of everything we said, of all the mumbled words and shouts, something intelligible could only be made out from our endless and repeated phrases. I love you. I missed you so much. I love you. To be continued. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you don't miss the next part of this story. She will be there very soon. The link to the sequel will be in the description of this video below. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.